I knew I shouldn't have named my donut shop Inferior Donuts. I just left it wide open for the competition to come in.
It's not my fault. My name is Greg Inferior. I was trying to go with my family name.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just its first televised episode, and ignoring anything we may know about the future run of that show, decide if that's a show that we'd want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Superior Donuts. Superior Donuts went 34 episodes on 2 seasons on CBS. Today we're going to be talking about the first episode, which was called Pilot, originally airing February 2nd, 2017. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the guys, Gordo, Ferg, Joe, and not Nick again. So if that's why you were listening, you have to wait till next week, we think.
A terrorist joke, a first for me. That character is the goddamn best. He is so fun.
We will discuss that as we get to it. Guys, Superior Donuts, I guess to just peel back the curtain, this was a show I picked this week. I knew none of you had seen it. I don't think any of you had heard of it before we did this episode. It's a show that I did watch. I'm pretty sure I saw every episode when it was in the original run. But am I correct? Did any of you guys even know this show existed?
No.
Nope.
No, and it's crazy because great cast.
Yeah, I'm mad about it too.
Like, how did I not know about Judd, Hirsch, and David Koechner in a show about curmudgeonly people in a donut shop? Like, everything about that is perfect.
And Katey Sagal.
It blows my mind when I don't know a show because I do nothing but watch TV. So that means they didn't advertise it. Like, plain and simple. If I don't know about it, they didn't advertise it enough.
That's, I really want to get into that later on as we talk about it, probably towards the latter end. But yeah, I have some notes that pretty much specifically deal with what you just said right there. But yeah, I mean, an amazing cast. I mean, when you look at it pretty much top to bottom, the secondary characters, the main, I mean, Jermaine Fowler, who is, the other lead, alongside of Judd Hirsch, was pretty much a newcomer at this point. He's done a few big things since then, like the Coming to America sequel.
He's in that. He's in Crashing a bunch too. I don't know if you guys have seen that TV show. I don't know if that technically counts as a sitcom. It might. It's on HBO. It's Pete Holmes'
I never
show.
heard of it.
No,
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
My sigh was for Coming to America too. Not for your thing.
I thought it was all right.
We got it. Okay, we got one. It was better than Dumb and Dumber 2. It was better than Anchorman 2.
Yeah, no, I'll give you both of those. But yeah, let's get right into this episode here. Superior Donuts. All right, so we just kind of start with this quick exterior shot of the donut shop. It's the name of the actual donut shop in the show is called Superior Donuts. And then when we go inside, we see Arthur, played by Judd Hirsch. He's sitting behind the counter, and a police officer, Randy Deluca, who's played by Katey Sagal, walks in.
Ow!
Right, who most people would best know as being Peggy Bundy, although she's done so many big things, like...
Or Leela from Futurama.
Right.
She's great on the new reboot of the Roseanne the Connors. She's like Dan's new wife, and she's really fun.
And
Sons of Anarchy.
She's done so many big things at this point. I still think that she'll forever be seen as Peggy Bundy first, though.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Isn't there a real dark scene in Sons of Anarchy with her and Henry Rollins? And
I've never seen it in full. I've seen very little.
Never seen the show at all. So
it was a show that I didn't think I would like at all, but it's actually really good.
But anyways, she walks in to the donut shop, and Arthur asks her about her new partner, who she says is a typical eager beaver rookie who can't wait to clean up the streets and protect and serve. Arthur's like, oh, that's a cute age. And then offers her maple cream donut.
They start real quick on the whole... There's a lot of weird social stuff in this show. I find it very interesting that they both are like very pro-cop and very anti-cop at the same time. Like all the time. Like I don't know where the jokes are going. I kind of like that I didn't know where the next joke was going to land because...
I think they consistently do a good job of riding the line and not being hard on any side with a lot of things because they tackle a lot of issues you wouldn't expect on a show like this.
You mean that they're riding the thin blue line?
All right.
Stop it.
Gordon, just get your new Punisher tattoo with the blue line tattoo through it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we mentioned Judd Hirsch. He's been in a million things himself. I think Taxi is going to be always the first thing
He'll always be Alex Rieger.
Yeah, Taxi, and then maybe Dear John, I guess, is the second thing that he's known for.
Number two for me would be Independence Day.
Yeah, Independence Day is big too, but as far as TV goes, I used to watch Dear John all the time as a kid. That was one of those shows that was just, like, always on in the afternoon.
I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever
heard
seen
of it,
that.
but never seen it.
It's good. God, I can't remember the actor's name right now, but he plays the father, Fozzie's girlfriend's father in the Muppets we did last week. He's Judd Hirsch's best friend in it. It's good. Well, I'm sure we'll do it on the show someday. It's worth watching.
Deluca's partner, I think his name's James. I forgot to write that down. He runs in with the perpetrator that he was looking for. And he said he had to run 4 blocks to catch him. And, Deluca has a really serious face. She's like, all right, let me call dispatch. And she calls and, she has this very serious tone to her at first. And, be advised, the maple creams are fresh. and he's like, come on.
Now, does anybody recognize that guy who plays the cop partner?
I was going to say, is he Cheedy from Good Place?
No. Were we talking to the cop or the perpetrator?
The cop partner.
Oh, the cop partner. Okay, I have who the perpetrator is, but yeah, who's the cop? Aside from being on like every Law and Order, which I always can clock people for that because I spent way too much of my life watching Law and Order, and everybody who's a New York actor ends up on it. He was in another show about a curmudgeonly old guy in a New York or a city neighborhood. That would be the short-lived show Cosby from the late 90s, which was the weird comeback for Bill Cosby with Felicia Rashad. When he was like, we'll get the gang back together. We'll play different characters. He was like a main character on that. Another show that we can never, ever Didn't it have the one dude from Cool Runnings in it too? He had the Cool Runnings guy was in it, right?
No, I think you're thinking of...
That's just late seasons of The Cosby Show.
The Kiss My Lucky Egg guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he might be later Cosby, or it might be... I'm thinking of the other Ted Danson show, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get to all of them except for the Cosby ones, because we can't cover those.
And do you know who the perpetrator was?
Oh, we're covering those.
That'll be a bonus episode. No, who's the perp?
He was Jeff from Superstore, the district manager.
Oh, wow, I didn't pick up on that. Good call.
Wow.
Who's Jeff? Oh, the one with Mateo?
Yeah, Mateo's secret boyfriend, yeah.
Wow, good eye, bud.
Superstore, one that we'll actually be covering pretty soon. So keep an ear out for that. We'll be getting to that one sooner than later.
Real soon.
She's talking about, she tells her partner, Katey Sagal's character, you kind of learn with time the ones that, are important and the ones that are just kind of And he's like, really? I'm just He's like, I just hit up a liquor store. And she's like, and there's your confession.
That was a good little gag. There's a lot of quick...
She's the crafty veteran cop and the rookie.
So yeah, at that point, she tells James to just, head on over to the counter and just order something where he's at the donut shop anyways. And he goes up to the counter and asks Arthur if he has any cronuts, which makes Randy and the criminal both kind of go, ooh.
I've never had a cronut. Has anybody had a cronut before? It sounds wonderful.
No, I only had one from Dunkin' Donuts, so I don't think that counts because
probably
their products are not the same,
Have you guys had any D's nuts?
Oh, good Lord.
Stop it. I hate that you planned on when you were going to tell that joke.
I'm out.
I could have literally put that in at any point.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I've only had a cronut at Dunk's, just like Jay.
Yeah, and then, but you could see Arthur's. It's probably not the first time he's heard this question because he says what, but in a very angry tone. And the officer goes in, to further describe. It's a donut croissant hybrid. And Arthur tells him he knows what they are and that they don't sell them, along with muffins or duffins or muff nuts.
Genuinely laughed at muff nuts.
Yeah, muff nuts is very funny.
That was like a pause because I'm going to miss the next joke. I'm laughing so hard thing. And then,
right.
Now, what I want to know is, are those jokes or are those real, other things?
Well, I mean, if a cronut's real and it's a croissant mixed with a donut, I imagine that you can get a muffin mixed with a donut, but muffins are very thick, and so are donuts.
I'll say this. He said muffins first. Those are real.
Yeah, muffins.
I mean, the other, hybrids he mentioned.
And, of course, as we always mention, muffin spelled backwards is sniff 'em.
And I am not going to Google muff nuts. So if you want to go ahead and look that up, you're free to, but that's going to stay out of my Google.
I'm going to go to my my guy in the sky. Gordy!
Sorry, my microphone was muted. Muted. So there is
So you're nude muff nuts right now?
I do. So my man Jeeves here has told me that breakfast cinnamon puffs, aka muff nut, and then there's some that's from the One Hand in the Cookie Jar blog. Shout out to you, I guess. Reading your life story here about muff nuts.
Well, it's nice we can give them some play. Everyone check out the One Hand in the Cookie Jar blog and tell them where you got sent from. Is it just a muffin and its step muffin is also coming into the room to check on it because it's stuck in the dryer?
Additionally, if you Google muff nut pasties, you're going to get something completely different as well. So make sure it's pastries, not pasties. Arthur reminds him that this is a donut shop and that his parents didn't smuggle him in from Poland via a cargo ship so that 65 years later he could sell them a damn cronut. I thought his delivery there was really great, but I think his delivery throughout the entire episode is really great. I think Judd Hirsch just kills it as his character.
That is just someone who's been in the game forever and he can just fucking act. Like,
Yeah.
Because he does mention here that he originally is an immigrant from Poland. Gordo, what's his last name and how's that properly pronounced?
Pashibashevsky.
Pashibashevsky?
Pashibashevsky.
With a V, like a V sound.
Pashibashevsky.
Pashibashevsky.
Right.
New York.
Sounds like this.
Do I need to revert back to the voice note? Let me get to the voice note here.
Przybyszewski.
Shibashevsky.
All right, and that's probably the last time we'll ever mention his last name because it's somewhat irrelevant other than that.
Just keep calling him Arthur.
I don't call him Alex.
And that all buttons up with the officer then asking him for a scone and then getting kicked out immediately.
I love that.
And we get the intro to the show right from there. It's a pretty quick one. It's just the exterior of the shop, and it's just like kind of flashing to kind of almost show like the seasons or days go by. And I think it's really just to show you that the shop's been around for a long time. It's just showing you that like time's gone by in this area, but the shop's been here. I think that's kind of what they were going for.
I love this. We used to have a place just like this right down the street from our house called Verna's. Gordo, I think you'd been there before. It was like...
Where is that?
It was in North Cambridge by the apartment that we had in North Cambridge.
Yeah, what was the name of the shop?
It's called Verna's. It was like right on the corner. It was one of those places where like if you came home at 2 a.m. from like last call, the like baker was in there making donuts and it's all you could smell coming all the way up Mass Ave. And it was like this tiny little place with bad coffee and really good donuts. And it very much this vibe.
No, I'm a Bova guy.
Boba?
Bova. That's North End though.
Oh,
Yeah.
Boba Fett. Yeah.
Yeah, Bova's in the North End. That place is good.
I don't think I've ever been there.
The intro in general. I'm sorry. Do you guys have any comments on the specific intro? How you felt about it?
I'll be honest with you. The version I watched, I don't think had an intro, or I just didn't notice it.
It's pretty quick. I think you just didn't notice it.
Yeah, it's like a really quick 5-second intro.
I like it. I sometimes, like, you know, obviously something like The Office gets stuck in your head forever, the theme song. But I do like sometimes we do these shows and it's just like a stinger, you know, and back into the show. Like, I don't need to. And now we have the beauty of the like skip intro button, you know, on when you're watching something now. But before that, like if you're watching like a DVD box set of a show 5 or 6 years ago, after a while, you do not want to hear that theme song over and over again, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So I love that little quick ones like this. You're like, yeah, I know what's going on. We're in, boom. And I do like what you said, Jay. It does seem like time is changing, but this place doesn't. It's like a good, quick little, you know, jump in.
And from there we get into the next scene and we meet the first customer, Maya, played by Anna Baryshnikov. I don't know. She looked familiar to me, but I don't. Okay.
We're like 10 minutes in and Ferg has already dropped that bomb. It makes me laugh every time. So why do you hate this? Did you not like her Disney show or something?
No, I just don't like her character.
She was in that movie Manchester by the Sea that everybody said was really good, but then like disappeared when all that Casey Affleck stuff happened.
Was that the one about the pregnant pack?
I don't think so.
By the way, my very first note is this girl sucks.
Well, at least you're being succinct about it.
And for those of you who've been listening to us for a while now, you might know that Ferg hates all women and John Mulaney.
I don't hate all women.
Except for Whoopi Goldberg. Get better soon.
So when Maya walks in, Arthur comments on all the books she's holding, and she tells him she's changing her dissertation to a textual analysis of heteronormative structures as they relate to the postmodern patriarchy. Clearly, I had to read that. There was no way I was going to remember that.
And I will say with Ferg, this character, I think it's meant to be annoying. Like, I don't think you're supposed to find her endearing like the other characters. And I agree with you. I do not like her character. She's insanely annoying.
Oh, I didn't mind it. I mean, that was the character. Like, she's supposed to be purposely like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like change the channel heat, but it's like, I don't like this character.
She's supposed to be annoying, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a strong feeling as you two did about her.
I didn't think one way or another. I thought she was fine. She's not the character I like the least, and we'll get into that in a little while.
You better not say who I think you're going to say. But I will say there's so many great characters in this show that I feel like she's almost unnecessary. Like, it seems a little clogged up at times.
Yeah, they kind of have, for a show that really is going to mainly focus around two people, all the secondary characters all have pretty strong roles in this episode.
Yeah, like you could eliminate her, you could eliminate the cop partner. You mean, like, you could cut a lot of wheat from the bone here and have a different, the same show with like less of these people around, but it doesn't bother me. I don't know if it's different going forward or not.
Right. And to go back to the scene, Maya also says that, her dissertation is somewhat ironic because she's writing about gender roles surrounded by donuts, which are the Western culture's culinary representation of the vagina.
I mean, they are.
I wish this was a video podcast sometimes we have video, luckily. I want like a gif of Fert's reaction to Jay reading that out loud so badly.
I would have said donuts are more like buttholes.
That's the Western society's goatsy.
Wow.
That's not the first goatsy reference you've ever made, right? I don't think so.
No, but at least it's not child goatsy this time.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's true. That's true. I'm talking about regular old adult goatsy.
Moving on, but we haven't even gotten through this part yet. But the response from Arthur here I thought was great, because after she says that, his response is just, so what kind of vagina can I get you? And she says, only I can say that, or basically that he can't say that.
I did like that was a good setup for the punchline, though.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And like you said earlier, Jay, like Judd Hirsch still got it. At how old was he when he made this?
70s? Late 70s?
I was going to say he has to, at the earliest, had to be in his early or late 60s, but I didn't look it up, but I mean, he's
funny,
up there.
He got old, but then like he just stayed like looking the same for the next like 20 years.
Right.
He doesn't look any different than he did in Independence Day.
Right. I will say, though, Kelsey walked in while I was finishing this the other day, and Judd Hirsch now is on the Goldbergs, and he's been on it for a few years, so I think these overlapped because he's been on it as like the other grandfather for a few years, whatever. And we were talking about how he's so lively and like spry, and he's got, he's just full of everything in this, and he plays a different character. He plays like a really old, kind of depressed guy on the Goldbergs, and it's so weird that he can turn that off and on, because I imagine this is what he's really like, but he can also play like old,
For a guy,
yeah,
like as known and who's been around as long as him, like Judd Hirsch, like he's just of that level of celebrity. But within a few seconds of this episode, I think he's already Arthur to you. Like, you don't see Judd Hirsch anymore; he just becomes Arthur.
Yeah,
no, and that's the testament to, like Ferg said earlier, a guy who's been in the game for so long. Like, give him a role that he can latch onto, and I feel like he is Arthur, like IRL. And it was just like, I'm just me. I don't know. He could also be a really, really good actor, and he could be a very nice person. I don't know him.
I'd like to think he is. I get a good person vibe from Judd Hirsch. I always have.
I think we can all agree he's a good actor. I think that's
there's no questioning there.
And after that exchange is when we first meet Franco, who's played by Jermaine Fowler. We talked about him a little bit at the top of the episode. And he walked in saying that he's there to apply for the job. And Arthur asked him to just leave his resume and that he's going to get back to him. And Franco tells him he's not really a resume guy, but he kind of notes the last couple jobs he had, which were like a liquor store that turned into a Whole Foods, and he drove a truck for the Salvation Army, which is now an Old Navy.
I did kind of like that the Salvation Army turned into a different branch of the service.
Yes, I like
the
that.
Army turned into the Navy.
And Arthur's response is like, "Oh, so you're a small business serial killer."
Again, good, quick-witted, and I do kind of like this dude's idea too. He's like a young guy who comes in looking for a job at a sort of smallish mom-and-pop donut shop. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily a resume applying thing. You know what I mean?
No, but I think if you're looking for jobs in general,
well, maybe you have a resume.
Unless, all your eggs are in this one basket, it wouldn't hurt to have a resume. It's not like you have to custom make it every single time. You could just have resumes ready with all your qualifications and past experience.
I guess that's true, but of a job like this, if you have no past experience, that helps in that. Like, he was a truck driver and worked at a liquor store. So, I mean, aside from maybe cash register.
No, you can make a functional resume that transfers all of your transferable skills. from one to another. That's usually what you do when you want to change careers. But, but again, if you're going into a small business like this, they probably just have an application, or they just probably write your name and your number down and talk to you.
Right. Like I'm trying to think of like all the smaller places. Like when I worked at the gas station, right? I don't think I filled out an application or sent in a resume. It was like, I'd work here. And they're like, all right, like show up Tuesday.
I think, so to go back to this little exchange between the two of them, their first exchange, I did think the dialogue was a little weird. The whole like, do you have a resume? No, but these are some jobs I did. And I kind of felt like maybe he was telling him about these jobs that got taken over by big companies to be relatable to him in a way. Like, I'm used to being for, the little guy and not the big chain. Like, I thought maybe that's why he announced it in that way.
You read into that way more than I did.
I think I read into everything too much.
Isn't the Salvation Army a big chain?
Well, it's a nonprofit organization. Yeah. I wouldn't call it a chain per se. I mean, like it is a chain in the fact that there are stores and stuff all over the country, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. But Old Navy is owned by Gap Inc. So like Banana Republic and the Gap.
And Jay used to work at Old Navy, so
I did work at Old Navy. Yes, I did. I had spent a couple of years at Old Navy. I was really good. You know what's funny is I worked at Old Navy for a couple of years, and I was really good at folding for a little while, and I'm not really good at folding anymore. Like that, just you think it'd be muscle memory, but I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, that seems like a skill. I've done a lot of years in clothing retail when I was younger, and I can still fold like a madman.
Oh, really? I haven't ever worked clothing retail, so I've never had to fold.
The issue I have with clothing retail is I worked in backstock, so everything I did is functional folding, which means I fold everything so tiny because the whole thing was to fit as many as you can into like one space that no one sees. Mm-hmm. So like I probably couldn't fold anything to look pretty, but I could put you like a 70 stack of shirts that were like that thin together.
He was the Baxter Stockman.
Good reference.
If you want to know where to put Christmas ornaments and how to pack them, I'm your dude.
Oh, that's a good question. Did the Heat Miser require a resume when you applied for that job?
I must have filled out an application. I don't think that they required a resume.
Mr. Gordon, how do you feel about snow?
I can work any day but Christmas. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Ironically, that was the only day of the year that we were closed.
Seems like a wasted opportunity.
It is pretty ironic.
I like, from there, Franco starts asking him about, like, the pay, the benefits, profit sharing, which, as you'd imagine for a small donut shop where he's the only employee, they are not all great situations. But when he asks him about the profit sharing, he says, I believe in it. I don't offer it. I don't know why. That was one of my favorite lines in the entire episode.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of shows like this, they'd play him as dumb. But he's not. He's like, I know what a cronut is. I just don't make them. I know what profit sharing is. I just don't do it. Like, he's very well aware of everything.
Yeah, I feel like and later he knows about art.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they show he knows about art. Like he's I wouldn't say travel, but he's like a smart, worldly guy.
Yeah, he's a well-rounded gentleman.
He explains later, though, he knows all this stuff from Netflix documentaries.
And, in this first exchange with him, I think they're doing a lot. And we talked about this in the beginning. A lot of like social commentary and stuff they tackle. And a lot of their dialogue was a lot of, hey, you're a young black kid, and hey, I'm an old Jewish man. And like, they really don't shy away from it. And they kind of like, instead of letting it just be there and something like unspoken that you obviously will notice, they really like lean into all these things with everybody.
Yeah, it's like Finding Forrester.
There's so few You're the Man Now dogs, unfortunately, though.
You're the man now, dog.
But yeah, with everything too, right? I mean, they have cops having like, I'm a cop, mentality in a world where, that can be an issue. They've got the Middle Eastern guy being very upfront about it and making jokes about it. They really just, they hit it's very Don Rickles. They basically just scorched earth everybody.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, no one can get mad. We're making fun of everybody.
I was torn at a point, right? Because I liked it to a degree. And then there were times where I was almost like, I get it. Like, you don't have to tell me. I can see it. I thought sometimes they like just shot the obvious joke at you as if you didn't already notice that it was like a young black man and an old Jewish man talking, or that it was an Iraqi businessman. And like they went for the jokes pretty hard sometimes, and it was almost like, get it. But I mean, I didn't think it was that bad, but at times it seemed like a little overkill.
Do you think that not knowing any, and me personally, I don't know anything about the show after episode 1, but do you think that they laid it on thick because it was the pilot?
It could be. That's
a good call, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
This is also a show, too, where there was an original pilot that they went back and retooled that I don't know if we
right. I think it was originally done for maybe ABC or something. I can't remember specifically, but I think it was retooled and done for a different network, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong there.
Maybe, yeah, but it'd be really interesting on a show like this because it's so heavy-handed with a lot of stuff. It'd be interesting to see what they thought didn't work. What if it was way more heavy-handed or if it was less?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Maybe some casting changes or things like that, too.
I'm sure they were like, this isn't very good. And they're like, what can we do to make it better? Like, get David Koechner. And if that's any network is like, sold, print this show immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, Franco offers to help with like the social media and things of that nature because, obviously that stuff Arthur isn't going to have much of a hand in. And he tells Franco that he doesn't need that kind of stuff, that it's a donut shop. And Franco's like, no, this is a donut museum.
I like this line. This is one of my favorite lines in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very slow in there. And there's something to be said about like those old spots that like just last on forever. But when the customers stop coming in, it's going to be a little tough to keep the lights on when you're just selling donuts and coffee.
But it's a donut place during breakfast and there's nobody there. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a hard sell, right?
Yeah, because he's like, this is our slow time. He's like, it's 8 a.m. in a place that serves breakfast in a city full of fat people.
Can I just say every donut he shows looks delicious? Like,
yeah, so I had wrote that later on, but yeah, we could talk about this now because I don't know if they just outsourced from like, maybe some local donut shop, but I don't have a very big sweet tooth at all. And
I do.
by the end of that episode, I wanted to try one of those maple creams so bad.
I bet the fun thing they probably get, somewhat stale during the course of the day, but I bet working on this show, you just get to eat free donuts all the goddamn time.
That's the crew. The crew probably. The actors aren't touching that stuff. That's the crew afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they would just prop food.
I don't know. It seems like Koechner and Hirsch would throw down a couple donuts.
Yeah.
We also have Franco's offering a bunch of ideas kind of right off the bat. Kind of a sales pitch is like, this is what I can offer you if you hire me. And he talks about the chalkboard, like getting a chalkboard out front.
That's one of my favorite jokes.
Yeah, because he's like, someone's eventually going to steal it, but then they can be like, hey, you hear about the donut shop? Someone stole the chalkboard. And like, oh, this is donut shop? and that in turn will be good. Just the fact that someone stole your chalkboard will be good for you.
I do like that mentality, and it is sad whenever you see like one of those wooden signs is chained to like a wooden planter and like a cigarette ash, like the long tall cigarette ashtrays or whatever. And you're like, oh man.
But you know why? Because of kids that were us when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
I never stole any donut shop blackboards, all right?
I can say specifically I've never stolen anything from like a donut shop, but there's a lot of other establishments where we might have done less than favorable things to the businesses when we were kids.
I don't know what
who real shitheads.
Arthur, after all this, Arthur reminds him like, this isn't an interview, right? He's like, how am I doing? He's like, actually not bad.
Yeah, I do love their back and forth like that, and I believe it. I believe everything about this, even if he's too much. Like, Franco is a bit too much, right? He's being a comedian, which I think sometimes comedians have this problem where they go into shows and they just start doing like a character or a routine, but it plays off well against.
I'll say this. I think from what we know about the character at this point, I do think he warmed up to him a little too fast. He should have reluctantly gave him the job. And then he annoyed him over time. He let him do what he wanted. Like I thought it was like the bond was a little quick.
I would say maybe because he's just being, and they definitely talk about this more, so I won't get too into it. But Arthur's been clearly just going through the motions of owning the shop for years and years, and it's the same customers and the same routine, and it's dwindling down. And you have this kid who's like excited about the shop. So he wants to work there, but he has all these ideas, and they might not all work, but it's probably the first person that's walked in there in a long time that Arthur's interacted with who is excited about the shop and the prospects of what it could be. So maybe just all that in itself got him a little more excited.
I guess so. He threw the cop out for asking for a croissant. Whatever he asked
That's
for.
True.
Scone.
Yeah, he wanted a scone.
So but he's instantly warming up to this kid like, hey, let's do this. You like social media? Hey, chalkboard. Like.
And you know what? And that's fair because, to go back with the cronuts, like, cronuts are cool in theory. And listen, donut shops, there's a lot of like hip donut shops all over the place now. Like that's a thing. But like scones, if we're really being honest here, are like the shittiest of the breakfast pastries.
I concur.
They're just dry.
They're better than cannolis.
Those are what they give you with fucking free continental breakfast.
Whoa.
I want. Yeah, let's pause everything right now. Joe just said that scones are better than cannolis.
Yes, because everything is better than cannolis, because cannolis are fucking awful.
But you love cannolis, Cannoli Joe.
Joe, you go by Cannoli Joe.
Yes, your alias in school was Cannoli Joe.
Joe, you've literally had mail sent to your house under the name Cannoli Joe.
I fucking hate all of you. It's because nobody knows how to spell pizzali.
I remember one time I was like, "Where's Joe?" And he's just eating 2 cannolis at once, like
double
fisting cannolis. So, actually, what are all of your favorite breakfast pastries?
I go classic jelly donut.
Do waffles count?
No.
Well, how about this? Let's do 2. Let's do non-donut category and then donut specifically, because it's such a donut centric show. We should tackle donuts.
Okay.
So let's start with non-donut.
Non-donut. I'm a bagel guy.
Would you consider that breakfast pastry?
It's bread.
You just said I can't do waffles, and you throw out fucking bagel.
I don't know. I was gonna say bagels too, though, so I'm with Gordo on this one. Give me a good sesame seed.
Bagel and schmear.
Well, I love bagels, but I thought we were talking about like more on the sweet side.
All right. I won't cheat. I will go with chocolate chip muffin.
All right, fine. I'll go with muffin then if I can't go with bagel.
I like a good like apple fritter.
Okay.
Well, fritter's good.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I also like a
powdered
cheese
sugar?
or a lemon, like a cheese Danish or a lemon Danish. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, I got to be in the mood for those.
Oh, what are the things in New Orleans with the powdered sugar all over them?
Beignets.
Yeah, those things are bomb too.
In Poland, they have this thing called a pasztyki, and it's a sweet it's like a sweet bread, it's kind of like a croissant, but it's filled with it can be filled with meat or it can be filled with like jam.
See, in my head, I see a daishiki that's filled with pasta.
I looked at Jay when you were saying that. That's when I lost.
Okay. All right.
That does sound good, though, Gordo. I think a ham and cheese croissant is one of the greatest things ever given to us as a food.
Croissant.
I like those ones that have like spinach in it. They have like those spinach croissants you see in places all the time.
I'm not a spinach guy, but I think a hearty croissant is better than a crepe.
Yeah, you got to do it, but you have to do the croissant right. It has to be like flaky and really good.
And before we get back into like the actual episode, the donut category. What's your like go-to donut?
Garbage jelly.
Ew.
You don't like jelly donuts?
No.
Yeah, they're always the ones I pick last.
Yeah, it's not a go-to for me, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm a Boston cream pie or like a chocolate glaze man myself.
I've always been with the chocolate frosted, but lately I've been getting the vanilla cream, and those are bomb.
I'm a lemon donut man myself. I like a good lemon donut. But to go back, Gordo, I know you're telling the truth because for years you've always told us, I love cream pies. You tell us all the time.
Gordon and I have both just been staring at each other, trying not to laugh ever since you said the word cream pie. I was waiting to see what's going to happen. We're all fucking children.
I don't even know what to say to that.
No.
Oh, my God. I don't even know what to say to that. I was going to make a cream pie joke initially, and I didn't.
Are you going to cream pie D's nuts?
If you thought you were going to take the high road and no one else was going to go there.
You know what? I already made a D's nuts joke earlier.
I wouldn't say it was a joke. You said D's nuts.
All right. Well, before we get too off the rails, let's get back into this. Let's get back into the episode here. All right. So now at this point, we meet Foz for the first time, who's an Iraqi businessman played by Maz Jabrani. I'm sorry, I don't know his name properly. I don't know if I recognize him from anything that I've seen.
Jabroni.
He's just a comedian, but I do love that his name is so close to Jabroni.
Yes.
I thought it was Jabroni.
He walks in and offers everyone a round of donuts, except for like this one fat guy who seemingly must have been there the entire time, but hiding in the bathroom until this very moment.
Which he offers a round. He says free donuts. I don't think he means unlimited. So the size of that guy shouldn't change the...
He just hates fat people?
Correct. At this point, he would only be buying 3 donuts for Maya, Franco, and this random fat guy who was in the bathroom the whole time.
But just like the joke is like, it's like if you were like, free drinks all night to Barney on The Simpsons, right? Like that's not the case here. It's one donut for one guy.
Yes, like it's an extra $1.50.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much could the donuts even cost at this place?
Right, because it's like an old school shop.
I just want to note, too, he never gets the donuts for people.
Also correct. And yeah, Foz is he's just really excited because Starbucks is opening up across the street, and it's going to raise the property value of all the buildings, and as a result, he's going to be able to raise everyone's rent. I get the idea of like, you know, little shops slowly like raising like the property value and like fixing up the place, like kind of one business at a time. But the way that they talk up Starbucks this entire episode, like Starbucks alone is not going to raise the property value of all of your buildings. Like, oh, did you hear they have Starbucks now?
Yeah, there's always like those memes and stuff. It's like, if you see a Starbucks coming, get ready for your rent to go up. It's like, no, they're everywhere. It's not that big of a deal. And also, you can still just buy like a $2 cup of regular coffee. It's not like it's a super crazy.
It's not all
place.
Frappuccinos, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a barista on our panel, a former barista.
Yes, that would be me.
Gordon, how long did you work at Starbucks?
Maybe a year and a half, I want to say, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't that long.
It's about the same as my Old Navy run, to be honest with you.
I had no idea you worked at Starbucks.
Yeah, I worked at Starbucks in the North End.
Yeah, near the aquarium, right?
Yep.
This is probably why he has an affinity for Bova's Bakery.
Yes, actually it is.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah.
In the Golden Goose Market. That's right
The
there.
Golden Girls Market? R.I.P.
Yes.
Betty White?
R.I.P. Betty White.
Well, she's hanging out with Rue McClanahan now, like we all wish we could be.
What if one went to heaven and one went to hell?
You know Rue went to hell, and it's way more fun.
That dirty woman.
Dirty Rue McClanahan.
Yeah, so, I mean, there isn't anything crazy about Starbucks. That it's just a regular shop that it gives off the air that it's more valuable than it really is. But
Delicious cake pops, though.
it's their property. It's their property. The way that the corporation looks for the storefronts, like they have like a special algorithm, and they're very particular about it.
Well, they're just a good boogeyman too for like TV shows, right? Like that's like they're like a good TV show boogeyman, right? In a situation like this, you can use Starbucks as like the big corporation who's
right.
Everybody knows what you mean.
They're the food service stand-in equivalent of Walmart.
Yes. I want to say, though, if you were to think back at Starbucks as far back as like Gordo when you worked there and when we were younger, I think the image of it is a lot different than today because it's so much more accessible to people. There's so many more of them now versus 10 years ago, where I think that it's less, there's like less of this air of pretentiousness that surrounds Starbucks because now everybody has an order at Starbucks. It's not like this veiled secret anymore.
Well, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head because Starbucks is so mainstream now, like they're fast food. They always were.
Right. Like they're in Target, you know? Like it's not like...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're fast food. They've changed just like McDonald's, Burger King, and so forth. But you have legitimate niche hipster coffee houses that are legitimately the pretentious.
Oh,
we
yeah,
only
for sure.
do pour overs, and you have to wait 10 minutes and look at this white wall that has like a bicycle on it.
To be fair, though, pour over coffee is definitely the best tasting coffee.
It's such a pain in the ass to make, though.
I don't want to wait to have one, but if I have a machine that's set up at home, I would do it because it is really good. But you have to do a lot of work for it. If
I have the leisure of it, yeah, but like I've made it for people, like in a service setting, and it's such a pain in the ass.
I will say this: before I was back on caffeine, if I would go into like a Starbucks or something, right, they usually don't have hot decaf coffee brewed. So I'd always ask on the off chance they did. And if they didn't, they'd be like, oh, well, we can make you a pour over, or I can make you like a decaf Americano. And I would always say, just make the Americano because it's 2 minutes on a machine. And it's not you having to walk around constantly being like checking the water and you feel like an asshole and you have to wait there. And then also it's boiling hot when you get it. So you can't drink it for 10 minutes anyway.
I'm currently off caffeine. So right now my order is just a venti iced Americano decaf. That's it.
The decaf iced Americano is good. The decaf, we've talked about before, should not be vilified. Decaf is fine.
Listen, I like caffeine, but I have high blood pressure. So sometimes you got to make a little bit of an adjustment.
I did 10 years no caffeine, and I still get decaf sometimes if I want coffee at night.
So, but to get back into this episode real quick, I want to mention, we definitely went on quite the
Ferg,
tangent.
the biggest coffee fan on the episode.
I know. Ferg hates, we've talked about coffee in multiple episodes at this point. But when Foz is going through all this stuff and talking about the property value and everything, he's so excited that he just screams up, I'm going to have money coming out of my ass, which is a funny line. It was a funny line, but I thought it was very typical line you give the foreign guy character. Like, he's obviously not that unaware of how the language works, but then here he like completely says something off that you'd have to be really like novice at the language to say something like that.
I didn't even catch that line, to be brutally honest. So
really,
yeah. What was weird about that? I've heard people saying I'll have money coming out of my ass.
He says coming up my ass or going up my ass. He says the expression wrong, and I think.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he says I'm going to have money coming into my ass.
Yeah, into my ass.
Oh, okay.
So he said it wrong.
That's right. I said it wrong.
He says the expression wrong. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I messed that up. Yeah, so right off the bat, Joe, you said it really early on. You love this character, and for me, he's my least favorite character on the show.
He's great.
I really enjoy him. I like his energy, and I think that, I mean, like, look, it's hard for me to say I'm not Middle Eastern, and it probably sucks for, Middle Eastern culture if you see people all the time who are getting, like, shit on, so you don't see a character like this often who gets to play the other side of it, right?
So I think they address all that stuff really well, so I think for that, it's fine. My only issue with this character specifically wasn't that it existed, but I thought he was a little too exaggerated, and more so than like Maya or Tush, who we meet later. He seemed a little too cartoony versus everyone else, and where like I felt like Franco or Arthur are people I could actually run into, and he just doesn't feel that way.
No, he's not real. He's a for sure TV show character.
And you know what I think it was too? The reason that he was like off-putting to me was for whatever reason I saw him and I'm like, this character belongs on Two Broke Girls.
Oh, I've never seen that show, so
we'll tackle that one day. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's what it was. I got this very Two Broke Girls vibe from him, and like because a lot of the characters on that show are very exaggerated. A lot of the side characters, at least, and I don't know, maybe that's what it was for me. But I don't hate the idea of his character, and I think the way that they tackle and talk about Middle Easterns through him was fine.
You know what I like about him though? He's like kind of the villain because he's trying to but they're all friends, so they don't all just hate him. He comes in, he offers to buy donuts, they talk normal and stuff, but they all get along.
Yeah, it's a good dynamic where he's not like the evil villain.
Yeah, he's not like evil. He's just like a greedy businessman.
Yeah. I like that about it, because he could have easily just been, hated by everybody there. But
now, Jay, you watched more of this show. You watched it in its initial run. I don't know if you remember this, but does it ever come out what he owns? Is it something hilarious what he does own, or is it just, nondescript? He owns, a bunch of businesses.
I think, there's a couple things that come out. I wanted to say there was, a dry cleaner. There was a couple, but it's a little foggy to me because he is a secondary character, and I don't vividly remember.
Didn't he say he owed property so he could up all the rent?
Right, and I'm really forgetting some of the specifics at the moment. But while he was talking too, that's when Franco he hears the rent going up, and he's like, "Oh, great! Now I'm gonna have to move to the Lower East Side and have to dodge bullets on my way to the store every day." And Foz just looks at him and then looks back at Arthur, and he goes, "Who's this black guy?" And then and he's like, "What, am I not supposed to call him a black guy? He's black." And then Franco's like, "It's cool, man. No need to blow up. A terrorist joke, a first for me." So they're hitting all of it. I said it before. They're not one to shy away from here's the old Jewish guy, here's the black guy, here's the Iraqi guy. They're not afraid to just let's get it out there, I guess.
And they do a good callback on the black guy joke later on too.
Right.
Yes.
Foz is trying to get Arthur to sell the shop because he's just trying to scoop all the business in this area. He's basically pointing out that the neighborhood's just changing and that there's no place for a shop like this there anymore. People here don't want donuts. They want kale smoothies and to not vaccinate their kids.
That was a weird one.
I was like, yeah, it's very different now. I mean, now we're in the early part of 2022 and the world is very different when it comes to vaccines.
Yeah, I'd like to hope that somebody ever listens to this podcast and it's not that far away where COVID seems like not a thing we're dealing with still. But in the era of COVID, a joke pre-COVID about people not vaccinating their kids is kind of wild.
Yeah. And we'll move past it. I don't think we should get too into it because one of us is bound to say something that's going to upset someone else, no matter what side you're on, right? So we'll go right past that.
Like Pfizer's vaccine walks into the room.
So Maya jumps in and she agrees and she says that the area is being gentrified and it's pushing families and small businesses out. And Arthur seems kind of open to the idea of selling, but he needs a little time to think about it. And that's when Franco steps in and tells him that he can't sell the place. It's a staple to the neighborhood and he can't just sell that easily. And he talks about this time and he was 6 years old and his dad, bought a box of donuts from Superior Donuts and brought them home. And they just spent the night eating them and watching the crack house across the street put up Christmas lights. It was like, that's a strange memory. Like, there's just like him and his dad are just sitting in chairs, just looking across the street, just pounding donuts and watching these crackheads put up Christmas lights.
Why were they putting up Christmas lights?
It's crack house.
It is the most festive crackheads in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like call attention to your crack house, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, the only thing I would pick apart from this point is he's talking about this like vivid memory of like, you're a staple to the community and, and he had the donuts before and all this. And if it's such a staple to the community, you would think maybe he would have met Arthur before, even like quickly in passing.
Yeah. Like over the ensuing, because he's like 28 years old or something, like, and this is a memory from when he was a kid.
Yeah. So like over the next 20 something years, maybe you've walked in the donut shop once or twice. You don't necessarily know each other that well, but they've clearly never met at this point.
It's also a classic, like, I want to support this place, this institution. I don't want to go out of business. But like, well, where have you been for the past 20 years? You weren't obviously coming here and supporting it either,
Oh, I was going to say that the only one that we know of that has come in since they were a kid is Katey Sagal.
Right. Yeah, that gets tackled a little bit later. You find out a little bit more of her origin and why she's a frequent customer of the shop. Which,
right when that comes up to talk about how I feel like there's a weird age disparity in that.
Yeah, all right. This speech does kind of work because Arthur is a little bit receptive, and this is when Foz is like, "Who is this guy?" And he's like, "It's my employee," and throws the apron at him. So I guess he was really inspired by this little speech by Franco. And this is when Foz is like, "Mark my words, Arthur, you will rule the day you said no to me." And he's like, "Ooh, that sounds a little terroristy. Sorry about that. Have a nice day." And he's like all smiles and trying to get that image out of all their head as he leaves.
Oh, I love him.
Once again, in my notes, Joe dash terrorist joke.
I'm a simple man.
And at this point, Franco tells him that he's not going to regret it and he's going to help him bring this place into the 20th century. He's like, "You mean the 21st century?" "No, I don't."
I will say that's one of my least favorite jokes on this show, but in general, that is such an overused joke. But that was last century. It's like, oh, we're trying to catch you up.
Well, I think here, I don't think that's the same as when you leave work on the 31st and you go, "See you next year." Like, I don't think it's that. I think he's saying this place is severely outdated. So
right, but that's a joke in a lot of sitcoms where it's like, we're going to make you dress for the 20th century, but it's 21st century. Like, yeah, well, we're going slow to get you it's.
I have literally never heard that joke before for it to be cliche to you. I don't know.
Really? You watch more TV than me? You've never heard that before?
No.
I was going to say, the two of you have tackled every show amongst the two of you total. I did want to take a moment here because it was brought up and we haven't yet. Should we talk about the shop in general? This is kind of the general set. At this point, we haven't seen any other sets but this donut shop.
The only set in the whole show.
For this episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's the only scene, I think.
There's only one other scene, or maybe two, but they go to the back at one point and they go out front at
they
one
go outside,
point.
But it all stays within the donut shop for the most part.
I haven't seen that in a long time for a show. Like, for a modern show, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, one location.
No.
And that's probably has a little bit to do with the fact that it's a pilot and they're not over investing because this was already a show that they were a little in the air about because this is a retooled pilot. They had tried once before, so maybe they weren't given a big budget to make this happen. But I thought the set design for this shop was great. I thought it was a very believable donut shop.
I was going to say, it looks like they just literally rented out a family-run donut shop.
Yeah, there was a lot of good attention to detail there.
I would totally hang there.
Yeah, I want to drink the bad coffee and play the jukebox and just like hang out in there for hours.
Well, you can't because it's broken.
Yeah, I very much wanted maple cream. So yeah, the new scene is Arthur walks into the shop from the back. It must be the next day. He's like in that kitchen area that Ferg just mentioned, and he hears a noise, and he just grabs the large rolling pin because he thinks like a burglar's there. So he enters the main area again, and that's when we find Frank was already there, and he's painting like some of the trim on the walls, which is a little bit of an overstep. You just got hired to work the cash register and maybe help in the back a little bit. I don't think you could just take it upon yourself to bring in a bucket of paint and start redoing the place.
I felt the same way that, yeah.
Well, my whole thing with this is the logic behind this is his first day. He didn't get keys yesterday.
Maybe he did. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's not addressed, but I would think that day one you wouldn't have keys.
But day one, he says he's my new employee, and then we don't see the rest of the day, so he could have given him keys at any point.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Maybe I'm overthinking this.
But keys or no keys, the idea of just walking in with a bucket of paint and starting to paint the place is a little bit of an extreme
It seems like overstepping a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he's not the owner. I think that he's under the assumption that, like, him and Arthur are equals here.
They're partners.
Yeah,
right.
they're partners, and he's not. He's an employee who, maybe he's like a manager, or maybe an eventual manager, but he's not an owner.
I think any little store like that, that's the thing. It's still his first day, but any small shop like that, when you are literally one of two employees, it's you and the owner. Like, there's obviously I don't want to say power, but the amount of responsibility you have is heightened usually in those situations because you're trusted to be everything when the owner's not there.
Correct.
But he tells him that the color that he's using is called ancient ivory, like him. This is another, like, you're an old Jewish guy, so ancient ivory, old white.
Yeah, it's also the worst joke of the episode where he says, I was looking for some Biggie Smalls and all I found was some Little Richard.
Yeah, you know what? So what I thought about that, because this is the jukebox that he tells him that he lost a quarter in the jukebox, and he said what Joe just said. And what I thought was weird was in that moment, because they really do try to drive in like we're from very different generations and we're so different and I'm younger and hip. I thought Biggie Smalls wasn't the way to go. I thought he should have used a more contemporary artist name.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And if you're going with the whole racist thing too, like, I love Little Richard, but maybe you say, I don't know, maybe you make the joke about a white guy, right? Like, if that's
but it wasn't even that, because I don't think
Harry
they were really
Como.
tackling. I don't think it was like a race
who's he looking
thing
for?
there.
You need to write the joke to go against the other person.
Yeah, I don't think it was a race thing that he was going for. I think it was just more a generational joke that all the music is super outdated. But again, Biggie Smalls isn't the way to go because he had passed like over 20 years ago now.
It is if he's trying to get him into the 20th century.
That's true.
There it is. Wait, Ferg, did you say Perry Como?
Yeah.
All right, just wrote the joke. I was looking for some Katy Perry, but all I found was Perry Como.
Boom.
There it is.
You're
Better
hired.
A superior joke.
There we go.
Also, we haven't brought this up yet, but I kept thinking this donut shop is not called like Arthur's Donuts. It is called Superior Donuts, meaning when he opened it, there was another donut shop in town, and he was like, "Fuck this place, my donuts are superior."
He was Starbucks.
Yeah, like right. It's such a great you guys both make donuts. What makes yours better? They're fucking superior, man. I don't know. And you know what's not in business? Inferior Donuts, which is a TV show I also want to see the spinoff of.
Yeah, there's the guy who's like, I knew I shouldn't have named my donut shop Inferior Donuts. I just left it wide open for the competition to come in.
It's not my fault. My name is Greg Inferior. I was trying to go with my family name.
I want that show really bad.
Yeah, right?
Because of the painting, by the way, this is Arthur wasn't happy with his decision to just go rogue and do that, but did note that he was doing a very good job. And he's like, oh, that's because I'm an artist, which it's a very different type of painting, like doing like art versus like brushstrokes for.
Yeah, saying that you're really great at graffiti does not necessarily mean that you can paint a room. You know what I mean? Like that's such a different
it's a different thing. Yeah. But he asked him what kind of art he does. And he's like, oil, watercolor. He's like, no, I do like street art. He's like, graffiti. He's like, no, it's social commentary.
This is a great point he brings up, though, the Banksy point.
Well, I didn't think that was a great point because he says, why is it that when a white dude like Banksy does it, it's great art, but when a black dude does it, it's graffiti? We don't know what Banksy looks like. Banksy could be black as well.
I'm pretty sure people have seen Banksy.
Banksy's identity is not known.
Somebody knows who Banksy is.
I don't even know what a Banksy is.
He's that idiot who did like Obey.
Nope, that's not him.
Who's that?
No, that's
Shepard Fairey.
Oh, Shepard Fairey. Oh, that's what I was thinking of because that dude's definitely white, right?
He's very white. He's very white, and his image is on social media.
Okay, I know nothing about modern stuff, so I confused those two people. I'm sorry.
He does like the street art, like the graffiti.
He's I think he's based out of London, but he's done like pieces like in Boston, but he's everything he does is not commissioned. So Ferg, you've probably seen like the image of like it's like a street art of like a guy with a bandana on his face, like throwing what you would think is a Molotov cocktail, but it's a bouquet of flowers. Like that is probably one of his more famous pieces.
I think you'd know somebody who saw it, Ferg.
You're giving me too much credit for being cultured.
To be honest with you, in about a month from now, I'm going to a Banksy exhibit here in Boston that I had bought tickets for. They're showing a lot of his work.
Didn't he do something recently where he like revealed a big painting and then immediately shredded it?
Yeah.
This was probably like a year or two ago.
That guy?
He had a piece in an auction that sold for over $1 million. And the second that it was sold, he had it rigged. So yeah, the frame shredded the photo the art that was just purchased. It was a big news piece.
I would have sold each slit $100,000.
I mean, it's still sold because actually that became such a story that it probably made that piece even more valuable than had it not been shredded.
All right, so he just has it in a big baggie. Just like, it's my $1 million investment.
he custom made the frame to have this mechanism to do it. Like no one knew there was a shredder.
Yeah,
in the frame.
I know that story.
But yeah, no, Banksy's a very famous artist, but no one knows his identity. So I thought that was a weird example to say when a white dude like Banksy does it. Now, it could be assumed he's white, I guess, but
I'm on your side. When I was saying it differently, I thought he meant Shepard Fairey.
Yeah, Shepard Fairey.
I don't know who that is either.
He's the Obey guy.
Andre the Giant, Obey,
Obey.
Hope.
Yeah, he did the Obama Hope.
I know that. Was the guy that draws like Batman in the streets and it looks like a real hole, but then you go to the other side, you're like, oh, that's not a real hole. You know what I'm talking about?
You should know because right now you're dressed like a London DJ.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't even have a comeback.
Well played.
But moving on, after Franco says that to him, he asks Arthur, are you racist? And Arthur's answer is not yet.
Good. I like the little quick-witted things like that. That to me is what makes that joke funnier, right? You go through this whole giant thing about graffiti, this and that, and then he just 2 lines, he's better than everybody else. Right.
And Arthur actually says, well, Basquiat started as a street artist, so I suppose you're in good company. And that's when Franco is pretty impressed that he even knows who that is. He's like, I know art. He's like, why are you so shocked? Just because I have a donut shop, I can't like art? I watch documentaries. I got Netflix.
I mean, they do have a lot of documentaries on there, art documentaries.
There are a few, yeah.
And Tiger King.
I can say that's mostly the kind of documentaries I watch.
And Tiger King.
Yeah, yes, Ferg. Tiger King is also on Netflix.
No, it's also a documentary.
Yeah.
It is. Have you seen the new doc one?
No. I watched the second season of it, but I haven't watched the spinoff.
Yeah, watch the Doc Antle one.
Great. Moving on. This is when another customer walks in, and this is when we first meet Tush.
My favorite.
I'm going to butcher his last name. Will someone please say it for me?
David Koechner.
David Koechner.
His name is Champion Kind.
Champion Kind.
I am in love with Ron Burgundy.
His name is Dave Packer.
Yeah, he's Todd Packer.
Todd Packer. Damn. I'm ashamed that I'm
Office over here.
I know, right?
I've watched The Office more than anybody. Wow.
I mean, he's just one of the best actors of all time. He's also got he even ends up in Justified, which is a show I talk about a lot, but like he's so good, he's even in shows like that. David Koechner rules.
The thing is he that good, or does he just play the same fucking role in everything he's in?
He does have a bit of that, for sure.
Because Todd Packer is the same as this character, is the same as Champ.
I think it's all shades of the same character.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I mean, he knows his lane, I guess you can put it like that. But
me and Frank actually had an opportunity to meet David Koechner, like, what was it, a couple months ago now. And I actually, in the time we got to talk to him, I brought up Superior Donuts because, like I said, I'm the one who picked the show. I am a fan of it. I told him how I really thought the show had legs to move on a little bit longer than it did. And he had told us that he wished it did too, because he has a whole bunch of kids.
he was an awesome guy to meet.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy.
I do love that though. That's like what's his face's t-shirt, Heath Slater's shirt. It's like
I got kids.
I got kids shirt.
I need this job. But yeah, he walks in as the two are talking, and he just goes like, "Are you being robbed?"
I love that.
And Frank goes like, with this, like holding up the paintbrush. I've seen it.
His whole thing about carrying a fax machine around and plugging it into the wall to keep it's such a great character quirk for this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bit of an extreme character, but it all kind of works for him. But also when Arthur explains who he is to Tush, they say like, hey, this is my new employee or whatever. He's like, yeah, I work here, Fat Bruce Willis.
Fat Bruce Willis.
Finally! So I have in my notes Fat Bruce Willis with no context, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
It's like, I was so high doing this, and I remember what I wrote.
And actually, I want to address it myself. As I said it, I like flubbed the word, and I think I said Willish. But so for people who heard me say it before, I heard myself say it too. I don't know why it happened that way, but it did.
Bruce Willis is going to come kill you.
That's Sean Connery saying it. Bruce Willis.
Arthur tells Franco that Tush is his most loyal customer. He used to come in every day before his shift when he worked at the John Deere factory. And even once it closed down, he just continued to come in every day. And that's when Tush goes on to explain that, the factory closing down was actually the best thing that ever happened to him. And now he works, where he wants, when he wants. And it's called the gig economy. So he walks dogs, he delivers pizzas, he models, mostly print. And, as he's saying that, though, I'm like, I cannot live that way. I could not live week to week not knowing exactly how much money I'm making and where it's coming from. I would be so stressed out 24/7.
I don't know. I don't think I have the ability to relax anymore. I think I lost that a few years ago. So the idea of getting a taste of that, I don't think I'd be like, oh, I should go when I have some free time and deliver some pizza. I would either be all or nothing.
Right. I mean, it's not that different than the life of a freelance artist too. Like when you do photography and things like that, it's, you're very gig to gig and you have to learn how to budget. And, usually when the going's good, you make a good amount of money. They can coast when there's no work,
and then do your taxes quarterly.
It's just too much stress. I think I need structure.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side is that, sure, you don't know how much you're going to make, but in the same sense, your earning potential is unlimited. So that's kind of
that's true.
The flip side. But you're right. But in the end, it equals itself out.
As he's explaining that this is the way he goes about his work, this is when he does set up the fax machine you mentioned earlier, just right on the counter. And I'm going to be completely honest. I've never used a fax machine in my life. I've never once sent a fax.
I have. And every single time I've used a fax machine, I've cursed the technology. I'm like, why are we even using this old ass dinosaur machine?
Yeah, it has to be upside down. It has to go it's an interesting thing. I did it a few times when I worked at Staples a billion years ago.
We have, PDFs and scanners and other things, electronic stuff. Maybe the government might still use fax because it can't be intercepted or whatever, I guess. But for day-to-day people, you don't need a fax machine. But I did buy a all-in-one fax machine. Maybe I should just start spamming our, S1E1 to various fax machines.
Just start finding random fax machines.
Because you ever have fax spam?
No, I've never used a fax machine.
When I worked at the airport, we would have to fax things all the time. And for some reason, there were restaurants, some of which not even in the Boston area, that would fax us their daily specials. And you'd get 10 faxes a day sometimes of just menus for daily specials. So one day I was like, all right, enough. So I just printed out a black sheet of paper and faxed it to one of these people 100 times in hopes that it would just kill the toner in their fax machine.
That's good thinking, actually.
And for those of you listening, we did announce earlier Nick wouldn't be here. Nick's been able to call in for a little while, so you're going to get Nick from time to time.
Via satellite.
Via satellite in the back of a police van.
You look like one of the wet bandits. Your van.
Hot ice.
They're the sticky bandits now. Yeah, so before Arthur heads to the back room, Franco stops him because he has more ideas he wants to tell him about for the shop, and he's telling him that he could totally amaze him with $1,000. And Arthur's like, why don't you mildly surprise me with $50? And Franco's like, oh, I get it. You don't have that kind of money. And Arthur assures him that he does. It's in the emergency fund, which apparently he hasn't touched in 30 years, which is really important to note because this definitely comes into play later in the episode. It's a good little note point if you caught that when they brought this up at this point.
Yeah, that line did strike odd to me that they would.
At the time, it did, yeah for sure.
Yeah, why would you bring that up?
Yeah, because it's like an old man doesn't need to prove to this young kid, oh, I have money, I have an emergency fund,
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it definitely comes into play later on.
Well, he just called him poor, though. That's why he said it.
Yeah, but, I mean, you don't have to specifically, you could just say, I have money, not I have an emergency fund. You could just say, I have money, don't worry about it.
I guess.
But as he continues to plead with him for the money, he's like, this is an emergency because, Starbucks is going to put you out of business, so, let me save you. He goes, what are you, Black Jesus? And he's like, first of all, that's redundant. And again, I've said this 100 times now. They very much lean into this. If you were just listening to this episode and not watching the TV, you would very much be aware that Franco is black at this point and that Arthur is an old white man.
But Jesus wouldn't be black, right? Jesus would be Middle Eastern.
Middle Eastern, if you were to look at like where Jerusalem actually sits on a map, yes.
Like that should be Foz's joke.
Yes, yeah. Which like that would actually be good if they like redid that later on, like if they had retold the joke and then Foz corrects him.
Right, like that would be the way to do it.
So Arthur does end up giving him like $200 to, let's see what you can do. And as he's doing that, Tush gets a fax from the hospital and he says, oh, they need a donor. But he's not sure if it's for blood or sperm. And he said the last time he guessed wrong and they were not happy.
I don't know if I told this story before. Did I tell you when I went to the hospital the one time with my delivery of stool sample and they thought I was a courier?
No.
So this is reminding me of it. So I had to do a stool sample, like when you put it into like one of those, like the little cowboy hat looking things. So they're like, yeah, and then you just like come back and you drop it off. The thing you like put into the toilet, it's almost shaped like a cowboy hat to like you poop into this thing.
Oh, got it. To catch.
And then you like scoop it out or whatever. So they're like, yeah, take this, put it in a cooler, come down here, right? So I show up like the next day, I do what they tell me to do, and I've got my giant courier bag on, right? And I don't have an appointment or anything, so I go to the front desk and I'm like, hi, I'm here. I have to like drop this thing off or whatever. And the girl's just like not picking up what I'm saying. And she was like, well, you can just leave it with me. And I was like, at the desk? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So I like flip my bag over, I pull it out, and I'm pulling it out, and I see her eyes go wide. She's like, wait, what is it? I was like, it's a stool sample. And she's like, oh my God, sit down.
It's my poo.
And then they sorted it out, and I got to go give it to a doctor, and then she like definitely did not even look at me when I walked out.
All right, lady, here's a bag with my crap in it.
I was like, if you want it at the counter, sure. Seems an odd place, but here we go.
You should have just allowed that. Heard over, what is this?
Just not told her. Like, if I had known in the moment what was happening, yeah, just like, let it ride.
Be like, it's my poo. Just...
Well, anyways, we cut to the next day, and then we see Tush and Franco are looking across the street. Apparently, this is the opening day at Starbucks, and there's already a line down the street, and they haven't even opened up yet. And Franco reveals his plan to lure people in who are just tired of waiting in line, and this is when we meet Sweatpants.
Just real quick, though, not to tangent off again, but they live in Chicago. There is probably 5,000 Starbucks in the city of Chicago. There's a line waiting for it to open.
Depending on what area, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's not one that far away. And they have a pretty good transit system. So even if there wasn't one in your neighborhood, you can get on the train and probably catch a Starbucks a couple stops away.
Right. You could Uber Eats one. I have Uber Eats Starbucks sometimes. It's the yuppiest thing I do.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a sitcom, and then, as much as we dissect and we really nitpick, but you got to give them a little bit of a sitcom pass for that.
Do they have to pay Starbucks?
Maybe.
Probably.
I don't know exactly how that works.
I don't know, because later on when the manager of Starbucks shows up, he's not wearing a uniform or Starbucks
I had
logo.
that note too, yeah. Later on, we meet the guy, a manager from Starbucks, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, he's very much not in anything remotely looking like a Starbucks attire at all. Which is very easy to replicate because they don't even have a set uniform. It's just like
green,
wear
right?
this color shirt and
black
pants.
and green, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the green apron over a black shirt. So yeah, very easy to replicate. But in any event, yeah, they're just sitting there watching over it, and we meet Sweatpants, who's wearing this like giant donut suit, like a big donut costume.
So was that made out of a tire? It had weird ridges on the side, and so I had in my notes that like it looks like a tractor tire.
It would be so heavy. He wouldn't be able to walk if that was the case. But yeah, this is when we get into the thing with, he tells him that some of the sprinkles are gang colors to watch out for, what area he heads into.
I like the idea of a gang being so angry and so proud of their colors that a giant walking donut goes by with green on it, and they're like, "Fuck you, man!"
Yeah.
Pow, pow, pow.
Yeah.
And then of course jelly would come out of the donut as he shoots him, right?
Yes, raspberry all over the streets.
Yeah.
So I believe this is the error in geography.
Oh, really? Tell us about that.
There's an error in geography?
What?
So the character says not to go north on Foster Avenue because of the gangs, but Foster Avenue runs east-west, and the gang problems in Chicago are nowhere near Foster Avenue or uptown. This is according to people on IMDb.
Ooh.
It's literally like the actually like crowd. So
You heard it here first, as first reported by people.
From Illinois, both of them.
He also makes a So I guess the plan is for Sweatpants to just pass out flyers and do that in the suit. But he also gets a video out of Sweatpants before he goes to put on the new Instagram page where he just says, "Who wants to go nuts for donuts?" And the only, like, if we're going to be nitpicky here, as he's recording it, they then both look at Arthur for like kind of this like approval of the message. Franco turns away with the phone before Sweatpants is even done talking. So even if he's going to post this video on Instagram, this 3-second video, it's going to be cut short by the fact that he moves the camera away from Sweatpants before he finishes the one line.
So it's just a really shitty video.
It's a terrible video. This is not the way to launch a new social media campaign. Speaking of social media, you can go to S1E1 Pod on Instagram if you want to follow us. And I would assure that we do not cut away after just 3 quick seconds. So then Arthur asks if any of this is going to work. And Franco tells him on top of this, he also has a poetry slam that's set up for the shop tonight. And he posted a bunch of dope-ass Yelp reviews. And he's like, dope-ass is good, right? He's like, yeah, dope-ass is good. So Arthur tells Franco about how this place used to be back in the day when the factory had 3 shifts. So, you know, the John Deere factory, I assume is what he meant, the one that Tush worked at. So people were having breakfast all day. And he mentions how the jukebox used to work back then and the air was thick with the smell of donuts and cigarettes. I'm like, oh, yum.
That sounds terrible, and it is, but that must have been so fun. Just like a chain smoky, coffee, donut-y, like 1980s restaurant. Like, take me back to there right now.
That reminds me of like when I was a kid, when we'd go to IHOP, like my mom was a cigarette smoker back then, and they used to have a smoking section that she would just insist that we always had to sit there, and I would always plead, can you just please not smoke a cigarette while we're at IHOP so we don't have to smell cigarette smoke while I'm eating my pancakes?
I still will never forget the name of the smoking section at the Hilltop was Sioux City, because that was the one that we always sat in because everybody in my family smoked. And as a kid, you were like, I don't want to sit in Sioux City anymore.
For those of you who are not from the like the North Shore Boston area where we all come from, the Hilltop was a steakhouse restaurant that used to be not too far from us. Yeah, R.I.P. And they had different sections that were all named like Sioux City and Suffolk City,
Dodge City,
all that. Dodge City. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when we went to Moosic, Pennsylvania?
I do.
And we went to that diner that we all went to get a bite to eat. And then we went into this little diner in Moosic, Pennsylvania, and we saw ashtrays on the table and realized you could smoke in there. And I believe there must have been like 10 of us, right? It was a lot of us.
It was a 2-car trip. Yeah, two car loads.
We all hotboxed that poor diner. So
I smoked in a bar right before COVID in Florida, and it was the weirdest thing ever. I didn't know what to do. Like, you feel so uncomfortable, but I was like, oh, you can, I will. But after one, I was like, I hate this. Is awful.
I forget where I was that I was allowed to smoke inside. I was someplace. Oh, I always do that in the airports whenever I go overseas. Like, I always feel weird sitting in the airport smoking because in the U.S. it's like no fun zone on the international flights. But like once you hit like Germany or anywhere in the EU, you can smoke.
When we flew home, me, Ferg, and Nick were all in Nashville a couple years ago. And on the way home, there was like a smoking area that you could like pay $5 to go into. So if you wanted to like smoke while you're at the airport, they had like a designated room. It wasn't like an outdoors vented room. It was just an area you were allowed to smoke.
No, it's like a little glass cube room that has like exhaust.
Yeah, it was very different from anything I had noticed in other airports.
Oh yeah, if you go into Europe, they're all over Europe.
Flying's a nightmare. That's worth $5.
Joe, I wanted to ask you specifically, the last couple minutes of dialogue in this episode, we got him mentioning Yelp reviews and Instagram. You tend to hate this kind of stuff when it's brought up in shows.
Yeah.
Like these modern references. Did it flag you at this point? Did you take note of it when this was being said?
Yeah, I have note of it. And like, I don't know, the first thing I thought of was like, I get it. Like, people use Instagram for stuff, and I'm sure people follow restaurants, but I don't know if I've ever read a Yelp review as a reason to go someplace or not. I'm sure people do, but I don't know if I don't know. It's a weird thing. I think I sometimes just don't feel like I get what people are doing anymore, but it wasn't like I understood it because it was what people are doing and because it's in the context of trying to tell somebody who's older.
The actual reviews themselves, I never really care about because it's usually people that love or hate something. Like the neutral comments, the more accurate ones are never the ones that actually get posted.
Same with Amazon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the best advice I'd ever got from someone when it comes to like picking out a food place through Yelp is just look at the pictures people took of their food. Just go by that. Just give it the eye test.
There you go.
It's a good way to check out portions and generally if there's any quality. Like you can usually do a good eye test.
That's a good idea. I was going to say, I know that like with Yelp, the problem is that like, yeah, you're right. But all of these places like live and die by these reviews. All these small businesses. Like it's really weird. We had that problem when I worked at the hotel that like if we get like 1 or 2 off reviews, even though everything was fine.
On like TripAdvisor or something?
Yeah, on TripAdvisor or Booking.com or one of those sites. Or Yelp even, because Yelp started getting into hotels. They're not just restaurants anymore. You know, like you could see kind of a little dip. Like, so and I imagine it's even worse for a small restaurant.
I will say, I wish I had checked because when we went to Canada a couple of years ago, I think I told you this, but we picked this restaurant or this hotel because it was like halfway point to where we were going and it had a bar in it. And we're like, cool, we've been driving all day. We can have a drink. And then there was no bar. There was just a guy with a bunch of, nips and soda water. It cost like $9 for a drink. So
yeah, also to go back, after this recount of the cigarettes and donut smell, Arthur says, I wonder what happened to all those people. And that's when Franco's like, they're probably all dead from the cigarettes and donuts.
That is a tough life. If you're hanging out, smoking and drinking coffee and eating donuts all day, you probably don't have a huge expectancy there.
And right after that, we get the 2 officers, Deluca and James, walk back in, and James is telling Randy, like, you can't just give someone a ticket for being annoying. And she's like, I can, and I did. And that's when he goes, fine, but I'm not paying it. And I think it was like a very obvious joke, but it did get me.
I like
yeah,
it.
He had a really good delivery. I don't know what it was. Something about the way he responded. I thought he did a really good job there. But this is when we get the Randy DeLuca backstory a little bit too, because Arthur tells Franco about how he was basically best friends with her father, and despite the fact that he never tipped and cheated at bowling, but he would always take her to the shop when she was a little girl. And because of how frequently they were there back then, she said she was kind of a porker, and Franco said that she looks pretty good now. And she's like, I don't know if I should be flattered or drug test you. Joe, you mentioned earlier something about the age disparity when this was mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, they're 20 years apart, but it seems like it didn't make sense to, I guess he could have had that place really early, really young, but they're only 20 years apart. So if he was 25, she'd be 5.
Yeah, and you're talking real life age difference, so you could even give it a little bit of a TV bump in either way too. So he could be theoretically a 30-year-old man and she's a 5-year-old girl at that point, so it's not that crazy.
Yeah. And also, to be fair, I think that Sagal always looks and plays way younger than she actually is. I mean, she looks...
Yes, that
doesn't look her age at all.
An SOA.
I don't know. I mean, in the Married with Children, she looks old. Maybe it's just her style.
It's the style and the way she's presented back then. I think the big hair and everything, and the stronger makeup. But yeah, she also, after that, she turns and she notices this painting on the wall, which Franco goes to show it to her. And right as he gets to the wall, he turns back to her and he says, wow, I must trust you. I just turned my back on a Chicago cop. And again, it's just like that willingness to go there, right? To tell that kind of a joke without any hesitation. The show takes a lot of bold steps with that.
And then her response too is she just blows him off. She's like, I have my body cams on. You're like, wow, they're really going for it on both directions.
Yeah. And the painting is called Arthur in the Sky with Donuts. And Arthur was really impressed by it, and he tells him that he should go to art school. And you can kind of see that this like puts a smile on Franco's face, just like him saying that like he's talented enough for it. I'll also say, like, full discretion, I really liked that painting, and if that it might be available for sale somewhere, maybe on like Etsy. I didn't look.
You want a print of it?
There's no doubt.
That's something that, like, if it wouldn't match the current colors, but if I was to redo my kitchen, I would potentially hang that up in my kitchen for sure.
Black Judd Hirsch with donut basketballs.
Right, yes, because we find out, because Arthur asks why he's so dark in the photo, and it's because it's a repurposed painting that was originally Michael Jordan, and those donuts were all basketballs in the original version of it.
I also like the idea that he painted that picture recently. Like, I know it's probably from when he was a kid, but I like the idea that he's like 30 in 2018 and he's still drawing like little kid Michael Jordan fan things, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, it is Chicago. He's still like an absolute legend there. Just like see like Larry Bird art around Boston still.
Or Rocky in Philly.
Right.
Or Rocky in Rocky 5.
Ugh.
Just want to bum out, Jay.
I hate Rocky 5. Oh my! I'm not gonna get into it right now. So, right after this is when we get this yuppie couple that walks into the shop because they had read the Yelp reviews. So apparently that was working. And Franco jumps right up and he's like, "Oh, welcome to Superior Donuts. May we interest you in one of our artisanal confections handcrafted by our in-house donutier." And the man says he's trying to stay away from dairy. And I think this is one of the funniest little things that happen in the whole episode. Because Tush gives him this like death stare and he just says, so let me move this creamer. And he just like slowly moves the creamer back away from him. Because he's like, he just hates this type of person.
Yeah, he's on fire in this whole scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Tush.
They ask if they have anything that's soy-based, and Arthur says, no, everything here is food-based.
Yeah. Fuck those yuppies.
And he asks if he can interest them in one of his famous maple creams. And the woman, like, without ever taking her eyes off her phone's like, no thanks. I'll have a grande mocha macchiato. And he's like, we only sell coffee. Like, isn't that coffee? It's like, no, that's Italian for overcharge me. I'm a pretentious millennial. It's just like when the cronut thing was mentioned earlier, like, he's very set in his ways, almost to a fault, right? You were made to dislike the yuppie couple for sure. But the fact that he's so angry when anyone wants anything that's not a donut or a cup of coffee, like, every time it infuriates him.
I'm with him.
Of course.
Me too.
Yeah. There should be separate lines in every coffee shop. If you want just coffee, you get to go in an express line. If you want whatever the fuck she just ordered, you have to wait.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Dunks and Starbucks started doing that in the mornings. I know Dunks has an express line.
Certainly not at the airport.
I haven't seen any of them anywhere near here, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and like certain standalone ones. I know in Cleveland Circle they had one, and in downtown Boston they have a express line.
Well, that's good. I mean, that certainly helps because trust me, when I'm just trying to order my black coffee and I'm waiting like forever because these poor people are making these like complicated drinks one after another after another.
Mobile order ahead. Every 10 you get a free Dunks, kid.
Oh no, I don't do my coffee at Dunks, but we'll get into that another day. I'm sure we'll talk coffee again.
No more coffee.
I was gonna say we've hit Ferg's coffee talk quota for the day.
For the year.
Yeah. So obviously these customers leave, and Franco says that this is just kind of like a learning curve to deal with, and the new client base, is something that he's gonna have to learn. Maybe they should try some new flavors like sriracha or nutter butter. And honestly, like he's saying this, and like sriracha seems weird, but I think of all of these kind of more hipstery donut shops that exist everywhere now, and like that is so something you would see there. Like. Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely.
I don't think they get that weird.
It's just peanut butter.
They do.
But nutter butter is just peanut butter, right?
Peanut butter, but it would probably have like that cookie, like some sort of a cookie, like crumble. Like, and honestly, in those cases, they'd probably legit just crumble up nutter butters and put them on top. So
right. But that I can see being good. Who the fuck wants to eat a sriracha donut?
That's what I'm saying. I've never seen anything like that. Like the weirdest I've seen is bacon, which is normal now.
I have.
You go to these weird hipstery donut shops.
You've seen sriracha donuts before.
Maybe not sriracha specifically, but there are things in that wheelhouse that you would see, and it wouldn't flag you as that odd.
I think what's the one in Somerville? The big donut place.
Union Square?
Yeah, I think that they've done a couple of one-off ones with sriracha before.
I'd like an April Fool's sriracha donut where they tell you it's a jelly, but it's just filled with sriracha. You take a bite and then you have to fucking kill yourself.
No, it was like on like the frosting. It wasn't like, it's filled with sriracha. It was like kind of like a drizzle. Yeah.
It's still not a taste I would want with my sweet donut.
Well, you have to balance it with something else that you just don't have the cultured palate for.
It's not a cultured palate. That's disgusting.
Nothing says culture like donuts.
I know, I love the idea of trying to class up donuts.
But Arthur says that he's the one in charge of the donuts, and he kind of walks off. And at the same time, you can hear Tish's fax machine go off again, and he just landed a gig as the assailant at a women's self-defense class.
He announces it, though. This is the hardest laugh I got the entire episode. It's like, gig coming in.
That one, really?
I lost it at that, yeah.
It's a great show.
And I don't know if this is how the rest of the show goes, but if the majority of his interactions are just like him getting these calls, explaining the terrible situation he was put in, and then going,
yeah, I mean, it happens.
Perfect. Yeah.
Also, I would have loved to have seen him at that job just get beat up by women.
Yeah, right? I also want a spin-off of just his gig, a spin-off called Gig Economy. That's just him going to do all these terrible jobs.
Yeah, just Tush doing a new weird job every day.
All right, guys, I think we should try to crowdsource this.
We should.
I'm
sure he'd be down.
It sounds like he'd be down, yeah.
So anyways, Arthur is, he's looking out the window later that day at all the people in line for Starbucks and how like not a single person wants a donut. And Randy lets him know that, it's just a slow day and that the regulars will still stand by him. And this is when we get Foz entering again, with his Starbucks cup. Like, not cool, Foz. And he's like, what? I have a weak spot for a caramel frappuccino. He's like, growing up in the marshes of Iraq, all we had to drink was, actually, we had these. Starbucks are everywhere.
I thought that was a good line.
Yeah, I mean,
but doesn't that defeat the whole premise of the show that people are super excited that there's a Starbucks if he just announced they're everywhere, even Iraq?
Are there any, Gordo, can you get on that one? Can we find out if there's any Starbucks in Iraq?
I will ask Jeeves. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Just make sure you dodge the mustard gas on the way in and the torture. And the traffic on Ramadan. I was trying to think of what his thing was.
I couldn't think of. I wanted to say it, but I couldn't think of.
Took me a minute. It's also one of those clips, if isolated poorly, would come off terribly too.
Oh yeah, but it's like he's saying it, and he's like authentic to that area, so like
yeah.
you can get away with like telling those jokes. But yeah, Foz makes another attempt to buy the shop at this point, and this time Arthur's a little bit more receptive than before. And because at this point, he's actually ready to talk some numbers. And Franco stops the conversation and tells Arthur that he can't sell. Arthur snaps back at him and he's like, I tried your ideas and they didn't work. You know, so he's going to close up early that day now. And Franco's like, you can't close early. We're going to do the poetry reading tonight. He's like, roses are red. No, we don't. And just walks off.
That's so good.
And Franco says he's making it really hard to help him. He's like, I don't need your help. I make the best damn donuts in Chicago. And I'm doing that delivery like no justice because he like really hammered that line in. I thought like he really like acted up on that one.
So guys, there currently is not a Starbucks in Iraq.
Ooh.
However, there are somebody at the beginning of last year, right around about a year ago, made a Starbucks Middle East Twitter account and had a fake opening in Twitter, and they make it look like there is a Starbucks in Erbil, Iraq. I'll see if I can find these tweets and I will put them on our Twitter,
which you can find at S1E1 Pod on Twitter.
But to answer the question, no Iraqi Starbucks.
Yeah, long story short, no, there are no Starbucks in Iraq. You know, this argument between the two of them kind of, it gets a little bit more heated at this point. And Franco tells Arthur he's too grumpy and stubborn and stuck in the past. And Arthur fires back telling him how, like, don't tell me how to run my business. You can't even hold on to a job. You're barely holding on to this one. And Franco says he doesn't want to work there if Arthur's just going to roll over and die and let his business go under. And that's when Arthur just throws Franco his backpack and he tells him that he's fired. So Franco storms off, you know, and as he's leaving, Sweatpants walks in with a giant donut costume again, talking about how, he's ready to get his poetry on. And I'll say this. I didn't like that it ended with the Sweatpants coming back in thing. I think a lot of sitcoms feel the need to like cut every serious moment short with the joke. And I think some of the tells of like the really great ones are the ones that aren't afraid to keep it serious for a moment. And I think this is a moment where they should have kept it serious.
And like, you're going to laugh once at seeing the donut costume. You're not going to laugh the second time. So you're really making it wear even thinner.
Yeah, because they even stretch it. It's not even like a one-liner. They give like Sweatpants like another line afterwards too. And I just thought that whole little part could have been clipped right out. And it should have just ended with Franco storming off. So Foz walks in talking about how he hates this neighborhood and they're always stopping progress. And he has Arthur walk outside to show him that someone spray painted on the Starbucks logo. And now the mermaid is no longer holding a cup. She's holding
a cannoli.
Perhaps a cannoli or a flashlight, perhaps. But one thing that I noted about this that did bother me, this was the only time that I think they go outside. It's not as noticeable on the wide shot, but when they do like this kind of more close up on their two heads, it is very, very clear how green screen they are. Like, and it didn't look good. Like, it was really, really bad. And that kind of took me out of it.
Yeah, like if you think of a show, and I'm not saying Seinfeld just to say Seinfeld, but if you walk down the street in Seinfeld, right, they have a 1 block radius built little city. Are you trying to tell me that at whatever studio they're working at, they don't have an outside exterior for one static shot? They don't walk, they don't move, they just need a background. It just seemed lazy. Maybe it's because it's a pilot, but it definitely looks like you see it and you're like, whoa,
it was very, very obviously like green screened,
Why cheap out on like bad green screening? The whole show's been in one place the entire time. So it's not that expensive. They could have spent a little extra money to make that effect work.
But there's just like legit outdoor sets. You could literally just have them walk outside and stand in front of a brick wall. You wouldn't know.
Right.
True.
Or they could have just opened the glass door and been standing in front of the door and looked out, and the camera could have been behind them. Like, there's other ways to do it to not use the CGI.
But Foz mentions that he's already been in contact with the police, and whoever did it's going to end up in jail. But Arthur already has a pretty good idea of who did it, and Foz is like, the black guy? So Arthur tells him, you can't keep calling him that. That would be like if you always kept calling me the Jew. And then that's when he had like that sobering moment. He's like, You do call me that. don't you?
Oh my God, you call me that? That was a good callback.
That was really good. So now the next scene, we have Randy walking and asking if Arthur remembers the color of Franco's backpack. And Maya was in there, and she was quick to note that it was brown, maybe more of a chestnut, and that it matched his eyes, which apparently she got lost in them, and says that she couldn't have been the only one who did. And Tish is like, no, me too.
That whole scene would have been unnecessary, and I would have been so mad that they brought her back for that if you didn't get Tush.
Yeah, right? He made that whole line.
Saved it.
Apparently the Starbucks manager had called after catching a glimpse of the person who did tag the store, but all he noticed was the brown backpack. I guess he must have caught him in the very tail end. I guess that's somewhat believable.
He was probably running with his hoodie up away, so you would have only seen the backpack.
Exactly. So he gets the backpack really quick. Randy had told Arthur that Franco does have some priors, all graffiti related, nothing too serious, but because of them, he could potentially be doing jail time for this. And maybe Arthur could stand in as a character witness. And he's like, what for? It doesn't work here anymore. And they're like, because he risked jail to get back at your competition. Like, you know, obviously, despite their argument and the fact it doesn't work there anymore, he wasn't just kind of saying all this just to say it. He did believe in the donut shop and didn't, you know, want to see it go under to a big corporation.
Yeah, no, he walked the walk and he talked, he talked the talk and he walked the walk. Yeah. I mean, it's admirable and we'll see, it's rewarded.
That case is a house of cards. He never would have been convicted. All they had was a backpack. Like, that's the only brown backpack in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps.
No one saw his face. No one saw anything. Unless there's footage, there's no way he could have been convicted.
Yeah, exactly.
Could bring him in for questioning, but
yeah, unless there could have been cameras in other businesses and stuff too, though. Like, think of the marathon bombers, right? Like, they had footage of those dudes walking for like 6 blocks or whatever.
Footage in my work.
At your work, and also related to a backpack.
Yeah, and if they open up this, Franco's backpack and find cans of black spray paint, like, that's not going to help. So, she tells Arthur that, she knows why he's upset, and it's because he got his hopes up. And he's like, yeah, what did that get me? Now I'm out $200 in 47 years. And, she says, like, get your head out of your ass. And that ever since his wife died, that he's kind of just been going through the motions. And yesterday was like the first time that he looked, like he finally woke up again. And I do think that moment, for me to just explain it doesn't know justice. I think Katey Sagal's performance there was really good. I think she did a phenomenal job there.
It's kind of surprising. You don't expect that much depth.
Yeah, it gives you a lot more backstory about Arthur's character, like just in that little bit of storytelling right there. And I think that goes back to Ferg when you talked earlier about like that comfort level and him warming up to him. Like, it kind of all makes sense when you keep this stuff in mind, right? Like, yeah. He's being optimistic for the first time about his own shop in a long time since he lost his wife. He's just kind of been coasting for all these years. This kind of like after that moment, because again, the delivery was so well and it really created this mood. Right at that point, the jukebox starts playing and it's like, oh man, like Franco fixed it. And it's like, see, he's good for you. And then boo. It's like, it worked for like 2 seconds. And I kind of like that they went that way with it. Took a little bit of the perfect scenario away. And it's like, well, he's not a good repairman, but he's good for you. And at that very moment is when Franco actually walks in and he's just there to pick up his paycheck. The other officer and James and the Starbucks manager must have spotted him as he was going in to get his check, because they follow into the shop right behind him.
And this is where we get the Starbucks manager in the non-Starbucks uniform.
Exactly, yeah. And they're like, yeah, that's the backpack, which is funny to me because obviously they were only identifying him by the backpack before. But when you have the cop and the manager go in and they're trying to identify, usually it's like, yeah, that's the man. But it's like, yeah, that's the backpack I saw. I'd never forget a backpack. And I like that Tush is going to defend him at that point. He's like, oh, it looks more orange to me. But notes that in the self-defense classes, they use real pepper spray, so his vision might be a little off.
Again, gig economy, the TV show needs to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does.
And I guess that was enough. They're like, we're sorry, Franco. Like, we're going to have to question you and, like, bring you in. So they start to, like, handcuff him, and he just says, like, can I call my mom? Can I call my mom? This is when Arthur finally stops, and he's like, wait, it's my backpack. And the Starbucks manager is just like, he's pissed. He's not going to take that. He's like, what? Oh, really? He's like, yeah, sure it is. So he, grabs the bag and he opens it up and he's like, see, this is my Afro pick and my oregano, pulling out, a green substance in a bag that I don't believe was actually oregano. He's like, and yep, and this is the spray paint that I used to deface your store.
Just like that he has to own up to that part.
Arthur asks him, like, if he will, drop the charges, if he gives him he has this $2,500. He pulls his shoe out And once he takes off the shoe, like he just has a stack of money in his shoe. That was his emergency fund that was referenced way earlier.
Uncomfortable to step on. That's a lot of cash.
That's what I was thinking. Like, this wasn't like a few bills. Like, this would notably like increase your height on one side by like by a couple inches.
No, that wasn't his shoe. It was like stored away.
That's not the vibe I got.
No, it was like inside of the cabinet. Why would you go look inside of a shoe?
That's why the cop wouldn't take it, because it was in his dirty shoe that he was wearing.
No, but it could have just been an old shoe that he just had underneath the counter. It's his counter.
Then why put it in a shoe?
Because he's old.
Old people keep money in shoes?
They keep it in like mattresses.
Well, in any event.
Am I the only one that thought the emergency fund would have been a lot more money? Especially if he's been saving it all this time.
Yeah, $2,500 is not a ton.
Well, it's just, no one ever said it's his life savings. The way the emergency fund was brought up earlier was, again, to set up the scene later on. Yeah. I don't think we're to really assume that he has no other money, but this is just his side emergency fund. I would assume.
It's probably just petty cash.
But yeah, so Randy grabs the money from him, but not before like picking up one of those like what kind of paper is it, like before they grab your donuts to throw them in so they're not touching them directly with your hand. It's
like wax paper.
Yeah,
it's like that. It's not quite parchment paper. It's a lot thinner than that. Yeah, I can't remember what it's actually called.
Wax, like disposable, like tissue paper. It's actually called tissue paper.
I love that you're doing this the whole time to describe it.
And then Joe's doing the same thing. So for those of you guys listening, yeah, they're moving their hand in like a grabby motion, but you obviously cannot see that. But the manager like reluctantly takes the money and walks off, but he's still really mad about what happened. And I get it. I mean, they did deface his store, so it's not like he's supposed to just drop it and be cool with it. But he was like very like extra grumpy face over the situation. He's like, no, I'm still mad.
I imagine that he's the great-grandson of Greg Inferior, and this is just another sting to the family legacy.
But you know what? You just had your grand opening. You're probably super stressed out. You've been working to get this like place up and running, and now it finally opens, and the next day there's a phallic object in the hand paper of your logo. Yeah. Is it parchment paper?
Yeah.
I thought it was too thick. Anyways.
We'll get back to it. We'll figure it out. We'll report back.
So anyways, the guy leaves, and Franco just ends that scene by going, and once again, the white man gets off. And then the next scene is we're back in the prep area, like the back kitchen area, and Franco walks in while Arthur's working, and he thanks him for what he did. Arthur tells him that he should never have defaced the property, and Franco agreed, and he just said he was so pissed and he didn't want to see like Starbucks put him under and out of business. And he tells him, you gave me a job, you listened to my ideas, and you said I should go to art school. He notes that when he told his dad about art school, he just laughed in his face. And Arthur's like, what? Like the guy who brought you donuts? Because that's the marking of a real parent. Like, how is he not supportive? He even bought you donuts. He tells him that was just like a one-time thing. And most of the time he was just like tearing him down and telling him he was nothing. And, in senior year, they got into a big fight and he finally stood up to his dad. And when he got back from school, all his stuff was outside on the street. And he even caught a guy trying to steal his sweatpants, which is how he met sweatpants.
I like that.
Ferg, did you say wax paper?
Parchment paper.
Parchment.
It's not.
Guys,
it's called wax paper.
You guys are so hung up on this. Like, it does not. It does not matter. But yeah, I do like that they addressed why Sweatpants has the name Sweatpants. It doesn't change the fact that I dislike that that's his nickname and that they call him Sweatpants for the duration of the show.
And it's an unnecessary character.
Just like a goofy name.
I like the name. It's like, think about the show. It's out there enough that it makes it funny.
Right. Wasn't for me, but whatever. But Arthur tells him, he's glad he's pursuing art, but no more vandalism, and he can't keep bailing out his employees. And that's when Franco's like, you're hiring me back? He's like, yep. How's that for ass dope? Which I thought was a really nice callback to earlier when he found out about the term dope ass.
Yeah, a lot of good callbacks in the show.
He's like, did I get that right? He's like, no, it's dope ass. And like you could see like they cut to Arthur just kind of being like, damn, like because he thought he had it. He was like really proud to learn this new term, and he flubbed it up.
It just makes me think of hashtag.
Right, from Mulaney, which we put out a couple weeks ago if you want to go back to the archives. He tells Franco, it may not hurt him to try a few new things around there. And Franco says, he's feeling the urge to give him a hug right now. And he goes in for the hug, and Arthur just hands him the tray of donuts and tells him to resist it. And I thought that was really nice, too. It was like, well, let's cut off the sentimental moment right now.
Yeah, I thought it was done in a really nice way.
Arthur says he's going to be taking 10% out of his paycheck until he gets all of his emergency money back, which I imagine your salary at the donut shop to get to the $2,500 is going to probably take you a little bit, but 10% at a time, that's like fair.
10% out of minimum wage is going to take forever.
If he's making that much, yeah. And then he asks, well, can I at least get my oregano back? And Arthur tells him, I'm taking 10% of that too. And that's when it closes out with just, Franco's kind of tickled by that. And he's just like, well, you're going to need some of these donuts then, aren't you? And he like chases them out back to the main storefront holding the tray of donuts. And that's the close episode. And I thought it was a really good way to close it. I thought that was like a good, subtle enough joke. Didn't need a big punch, just like something to kind of smooth over. I thought that was a kind of the perfect ending.
Yeah, quick little fun weed joke.
And yeah, that's that was the conclusion of that episode. So as far as Superior Donuts goes, you know, before we move on, anything else you kind of want to note about the show or anything involving it that you think needs mentioning?
No, I think we were pretty exhaustive on this one.
I was going to say, did we mention that David, the guy who plays Tush, was recently arrested?
No, for what?
When?
New Year's Eve for DUI and hit and run in Simi Valley, California.
Classic Champ Kai.
I hate that.
Simi Valley, according to ABC 7.
Whammy.
Yeah, ABC 7 in LA said Simi Valley police said that they responded to a 911 call of a driver who ran a stop sign in a residential neighborhood, hit a median, and then fled the scene. Koechner was pulled over and given a field sobriety test, according to police. PD said his blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the legal limit.
It wasn't yours.
I said I wasn't going to talk, but first of all, Gordo, it's Koechner. And I am in Simi Valley right now.
Oh,
hey,
don't
watch out for the median.
Yeah,
it's our man in the field.
Watch out for Todd Packer.
But yeah, I mean, I guess there's not much else to say about the show other than, you know, I brought it up early on. You know, like I said, this is the show that I picked. I do think that it's fair to say, you know, judging by the cast and other things, and we're going to get into the green light or cancel in a minute, but I think just the fact that you guys didn't even know the show really existed until it was suggested for us to cover says a lot about how poorly it was advertised. And, you know, I'll see how everyone feels at the end when we actually rate it, but I just feel that maybe if more eyes were on the product, there would have been a little bit more of a stronger following and the ratings would have been a little bit better. And maybe that's why it only lasted the 2 seasons. And that, again, is depending on how you guys all feel about it when we rate it. So let's get into that, and we'll do the green light or cancel right now.
2 seasons?
2 seasons, yeah.
Wow, I thought this was a one and done kind of thing.
No, it had a second season, so I thought it caught some legs. But let's get into the green light or cancel. Gordo, I'm starting with you.
Green light. I liked it enough. I'm surprised I never heard of it, I'm just surprised I never heard of it. And it being on network television, usually I do hear of those shows and I just choose not to watch them, but I didn't even know this one existed. I thought it was funny. I think it hit all the right marks, like we said. Judd Hirsch is a genius actor, made this really funny, brought his veteran presence. Green light from me.
Joe.
Yeah, like Gordo, I didn't know this existed, and it's for sure a green light. I really, really enjoyed everything about this show, and it's one of those ones that I'm immediately just going to go buy the season of it so I can watch back and forth, like watch all of it, the 2 seasons. I think it was that good that like it's on my list for this weekend. So I love Judd Hirsch. I can't wait to do Taxi. I can't wait to do Dear John. David Koechner is amazing in this. It's a green light.
Berg.
After the last 2 weeks, Mulaney and then Muppet sex, this was just a breath of fresh air. I really enjoyed this show. And when I think of a sitcom, this is what I think of. Like the typical like old school sitcom, one location, few movements. Like it is just so star-studded. I can't believe all these people are in this and I never heard of it. So they really dropped the ball, and that is 100% green light from Berg.
Nick, via satellite.
Yeah. I hate Judd Hirsch. I hate this show. I'm just kidding. I love Judd Hirsch. Judd Hirsch is a gem. He's one of those dudes who, unfortunately, I feel like you don't really think about until he's on screen again. He has aged really well. I don't know if you guys talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier on.
Yeah, did you talk about like how he was like the decrepit old dad in Independence Day in like 1998? I don't know what happened. The guy's aging in reverse somehow. But yeah, star-studded cast. Like you guys said, this must not have been advertised well because I didn't hear of it either. I love this show though. The only quip I have with it, I guess, is Franco. Like I'm not in love with that guy, but I could see myself coming around on him. So with everybody else there, that's definitely a green light for me.
All right. So yeah, with me, again, I've mentioned I'm the one who suggested the show. And a big reason I did was because I like this show so much. And I felt like I was on this planet where only I was made aware that this show existed. So like I watched the entire run of the show and knew nobody else who had ever watched it or really even heard of it. So, but even then by picking the show, we then have to go back and watch just the first episode. And I'm like, well, just because I like the show doesn't mean the pilot was strong. So who knows? So I was a little nervous to like present the show to everybody, but I thought this was a really strong pilot. So, I'm greenlighting it as well. And so I'm really excited that you guys all got to watch this show and all enjoyed it. Yeah, I think the cast was phenomenal. All I can think of is just maybe just poor advertising. I really don't understand why it didn't catch on a little bit better, because I really think it has everything.
I don't think the David Koechner character works with anybody else. I feel like I would have been annoyed by every one of those lines had it not been David Koechner.
Yeah, I think it definitely felt like that role was written for him. I think when that part was written, he was the actor in mind, and it would be very difficult to think of someone else playing him. But yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. 5 for 5 for Superior Donut. So kind of crazy to have a show that's this under the radar score a perfect rating from us. There you have it. So, I mean, there are 2 seasons available. It's on Paramount Plus if you want to watch it. I don't know where else you can find it, but it is available on Paramount Plus. And I think you could buy the episodes through your cable provider if you'd like. And I would suggest to anyone who's interested to check it out. I thought it was a phenomenal show. I wish that more people had watched it in the original run and that it had lasted a little bit longer. But from the S1E1 guides, we are giving it the green light. It does live on to see another day. So thank you to everyone who listened. That's all we have for this week. Again, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to everywhere to listen to us, follow us on social media. I'm begging you guys. We appreciate all the listens we've been getting lately. We've definitely seen a nice little uptick, and we are super, super thankful. And now we are asking you, please spread the word. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already, because that really helps us out. That helps us engage with you, find out the shows you want us to do. And we really enjoy hearing feedback from everybody. So please follow us if you don't already. S1E1 Pod on Twitter and Instagram. But that's it. That's all we have for this week. Tune in again next week. Thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best gig economy.
Ass dope.